Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So, as you can tell, I'm up at my field right now. Thought I'd give you guys kind of some crop tours and updates about the farm and stuff. I know it's been a little while since I posted a video, and that's because I've actually been very busy. And not exactly with farm stuff. And I'll get into that a little bit more after show you guys the corn here. So this corn here was just top dressed with urea almost a week ago now. So this stuff is really going to start shooting up here soon. It got rain on it the next day after we spread. So that is pretty much just about as perfect as conditions as you can get. So you can see corn's a little bit over waist high. This is a little bit worse spot in the field. It gets better the further out you go. This area here is just really compacted just because this is the only entrance to the field, so everything drives over that. But overall, I am extremely happy with this corn, given the field. It's not the most perfect field. It's definitely got its flaws. It's not the best soil. We had to go in, plant into it with it being no-till, just because that's what the county wanted. So we have to go by their rules. But it ended up actually working out good this year, not doing any tillage. And that is because of the weather that we've been getting. Last year, you may have remember, if you've been following along, that last year was pretty much a drought year. We basically didn't get any rain after we finished planting. Well, this year is completely different. We've gotten tons and tons and tons of rain. Like, it hasn't stopped, basically. So we're very happy we didn't end up tilling this just because of erosion. This field is pretty hilly. There would be a lot of washout areas through the valleys and on the hills. So we're happy we didn't do any tillage, and it ended up working out good for this field just because the ground is so hard from being alfalfa for so many years. And you can actually see, even though we've been getting tons of rain, the leaves are curling up just a tad. Not much, nothing to be concerned about. But usually when leaves start to curl up like that, it means they're dry. So I'm actually very surprised to see this. Just because just in the past week, we've gotten close to 3 inches. And pretty much every single week, we've gotten at least 2 inches. And the 1 week before we finished planting, we got 5 inches within 1 week, which is just crazy. So overall, very happy with this field. It's doing good. So this field and really everything else for the crops is completely done until harvest. So this is the last time that I really have to come in this field until harvest. So that's pretty exciting. So I'll take you guys over to the main farm and I'll show you guys the crops there. Alright, so we're actually at the second farm right now. And you can see I'm driving through some water. There is not usually water here. This is, you know, lower ground, so not super surprising that there's a little water here, but the first big rain that we got, there was actually water flowing through here. So there's normally the creek up here, but the culvert got plugged just because the amount of volume of rain that came down at once, and the water started to rush through where we normally drive. So here you can see is the culvert. So the water's gone down quite a bit. This farm is actually owned by the county, if you guys didn't know that. So this farm is actually sold, and it's been sold for a couple years now. Basically, we're just still farming it until they decide they want to do something with it. But, yeah, so they finally came out and cleaned out that culvert. So that's been nice to have that done, especially with all the rain that we've been getting. It just kept plugging up with more and more sticks and shrubs and all that kind of stuff, and just made a big mess. So here you can see the bean field. This ended up, we tilled the whole thing, so all of this was tilled. And up here are some generally normally wet spots, but because of this year with the amount of rain we've been getting, this was actually basically flooded out. And I can see there's water pooling again. You can see there. We actually ended up replanting 3 rows along here, just because with the amount of water that was standing, just killed it off. So a lot of that right there is not going to come back. It's a little late in the year now to where we're not going to plant it. It's not going to be worth it. It's probably going to flood out again. You can see there's a good inch or 2 of water standing there. Just a little bit of water where I'm walking right now. But everywhere is just so incredibly wet, which I don't want to complain because the moisture is really good. I'd much rather have way too much rain than no rain, because you can see when I get up here a little further, this is dusty. So these beans are gonna do great. The corn over here right next to the beans, this was, I believe, the first field we top dressed. Maybe not, I don't remember. But this field and the field at the main farm were both top dressed with urea, basically nitrogen. And you can see this corn is about the same stage as my corn. So it's about waist high, maybe a little under, which makes sense because this was planted after my field. But if you look down the rows are all canopied over, so there really shouldn't be any weeds that are gonna start growing here. The bean field looks pretty clean for weeds as well. And honestly, the only reason we have to do any more field work this year would be if a bunch of weeds start popping up. Then we would have to spray. But as of right now, it's looking like we're not gonna have to, just because there's really no weeds growing. You know, there's a couple little grasses here and there, but that's not gonna hurt too much. A lot of these dandelions, these are all pretty much dead now since we sprayed the first time. Yeah, so this is the second farm. This is all looking good here too. So now I will actually take you to the main farm and show you guys the crops there. Also, you may notice I did a couple different things to the truck here. First obvious thing is the black handles. So let me know down in the comments what you think of them. I really like them. I don't know if you guys have really seen the toolbox yet or not, but I got the toolbox on here. This was actually from the old farm truck that we had that we hit with the grain cart and ended up having to total out. So that's where that came from. And I also got these black logos on the back. I think these look really good with the white paint. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Also, of course, gotta have a couple decorations over there, you know. Gotta personalize the truck a little bit. As I'm leaving the second farm here, you guys probably really don't remember it, but right there was actually a huge maple tree. And during our big storm, which was basically a tornado, took that tree down. And that tree was actually leaning pretty hard towards that house there. But the wind was blowing that way, and it actually managed to push it that way enough to where it didn't hit the house. So we're extremely happy about that. But this farm had a total of 7 trees that ended up coming down during that storm. And once I get to the main farm, I'll show you a couple of the trees that came down up there. Alright, so I'm at the main farm now. And again, I don't know if you guys will really remember, but here in front of the house here, there used to be also a great big maple tree. And this was actually a very old tree. This tree was just about as old as the house, which is about 120 years old. So that tree was really old, and it actually ended up falling on 2 of the cars that we had here. My truck was in the shed, luckily, so that didn't get beaten on, but this car is fixed now. We're just waiting on the other one to come back. That one was a little worse. But once that branch fell, we noticed how rotten that tree was. So we had a company come out and take that down for us, just because so much of it was leaning over the house, and the stump is like 4 feet wide. So there was no way that we could have handled that on our own. We pretty much needed to take it down from the top down. So there's also a couple more pine trees and stuff back there that came down. We only had a total of 3 trees that came down, but it was enough work to keep me busy. So that's basically what I've been doing the past, 3 weeks now. And in between, I've been doing a couple other things. But first, I'll show you this hayfield here. So obviously it's not a hayfield anymore. I'm just used to calling it the hayfield. But this was the first field that we planted of corn. Now, I don't really know if I've talked about why we planted corn in here. So basically the reason we did was because our hayfield was really old. It needed to be reseeded really bad. It hasn't been reseeded for at least 20 years. And it was time for it. Basically what was happening with the grass was, first cutting was usually fairly okay, not perfect, but after that it really wasn't growing much after that. And a good hayfield should be able to get 2 solid cuttings, if not close to a third. And this one wasn't even close to a third. Even our second cutting was usually pretty bad, and the grass was just thinning out. There wasn't much there, so it needed to be reseeded. And usually the way you go about doing that is to plant corn in it first. So that's why we have corn in it this year. And as you can tell, that corn is doing amazing. This was obviously also top dressed, and you can see you're at eye level right now. And this is, well, if you stretch the leaves, they're above my head. Now, I may not be very tall, but that's still pretty good for this corn, how tall it is. Obviously the whole field isn't like this. This is just the best part of the field right down here. You can see, I'll keep you guys at eye level the whole time. The more you walk in here, it goes down a little bit, but that's this is about the height that we had expected to be at. You can see I leave the little stretch here so we kind of know where the two fields are. So this was the small field that's always been here, and then everything up from here past was where the hayfield was. But yeah, overall this corn is doing amazing. I expect this corn to do probably 250 bushel at least, maybe more. So very happy with that. Next year we are planning on putting soybeans where the hayfield is, just because to plant any kind of grass or any hay on corn stalks is possible, but it's tough and it's kind of iffy if you should do it. So planting into bean stubble will be a lot better for the grass to start growing. So that's what we're planning on doing next year. And if you're wondering too, if we're still making hay, that's a question I'm sure I'll get if I don't answer it. So this was our only hayfield on the farm, but the reason we are able to do this is because there's actually a neighbor that we have with a pretty good sized hayfield, and the guy that used to run it for him ended up retiring and sold all of his equipment. So we're basically running that for him this year. He'll take a couple loads. The dairy farm that I work on, he's actually taking a couple loads, and then the rest is for our customers to sell to. And which actually works out perfect, because we get really good hay. We can do this to our hayfield, work up this soil, make it a little better for, you know, to put hay back into it. And so yeah, that's basically what I was doing last week. We had our first cutting for that. I would have filmed it, but just with it being somebody else's land, and I don't know the guy that well, so I just didn't want to, you know, mess anything up while I was filming, and make sure I can concentrate on what I'm doing. So here, this wagon, this is actually not ours, but this wagon actually broke. You can see it's pretty rotten here, but this main beam along the bottom here just broke off, and the whole thing was sitting on the frame. So we got it back here. We're gonna take the rack off of it and burn the rest of the wood and figure out what to do with it from there. But this is not ours. We actually still have the two wagons in here. They are still full, just because our horse customers are out of storage for theirs. So I don't really know how well you guys can see in here because it's dark, but we got 2 loads of hay left. So this hay is really nice hay. It baled up real nice and dry for the horses. Perfect horse. So that is the other thing that I've been doing for the past couple weeks, I guess. And the other thing that I started to do just in the past week also, started helping a neighbor do some roofing. He's replacing all his shingles and stuff on his roof, and he's actually going to eventually replace all his siding. So I've been helping him with that quite a bit, and that is a tough job. I have a lot of respect for these roofing guys, especially in this heat. It is, let's just say, a miserable job, we'll put it that way. So yeah, I've been having fun with that. And as I'm taking you up here to the big fields, you can see our ginormous burn pile. Got some of the bigger chunks from the maple tree from here. Can see just how big this was. Ginormous. I don't think the camera really does justice on how big these things are, but so we'll be burning this pretty soon. Might add that in a video. But you can see here the corn. This is actually my first time looking at it this close in a little while, and I can see this is actually starting to curl up a little bit too. I'm pretty surprised by that, just by how much rain we've been getting. But I guess that's just possibly because of the urea we put on. It's got so much nutrients right now going inside the plant that it just wants to stretch and stretch and stretch like crazy. So it's taking a lot of moisture right now, which is great. It's amazing the difference between this year and last year. So I really don't feel like walking all the way down there, so I'm just going to show you from up here. But you can see that's the bean field there. Along the tree line, we had a few trees come down from the big storm up there. You can see there's one right there, and there's one down further you can't really see. The rest of them we've cleaned up, but that storm actually came before we finished planting, so I don't think the camera will really pick it up, but there's a line right, kind of right there. That is where we finished. Well, it didn't finish, but that's where we stopped planting before the storm came. And then that week we got about 5 inches and couldn't finish the field for another, I think it was about a week and a half. So took those beans down further below. They're a little bit more behind, but they'll catch up with the amount of rain that we've been getting. It's a kind of a bad spot to show you guys, just because the amount of weeds right here. And I think this might have been a spot that was missed with the sprayer, which is actually kind of cool to show you guys. Here's the line where the sprayer must have shut off or something, and here's where we sprayed. You can see there's basically nothing, and then there's a bunch of weeds. So you can see how much just one application of chemicals on this, how well that does. So before I wrap up the video here, I thought I'd give you guys a quick sneak peek to the next video probably that's gonna come out for me. I don't want to show you the full thing, but I'll just give you a little peek. So you guys may not recognize that. In fact, I can guarantee you guys won't recognize that because it is new. So the next video, I will probably show you guys that thing and talk about that a little. So stay tuned for the next video. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and thanks for watching. Man, I should not have went through all that water. Ooh. Now I gotta wash it.